So it would be awesome to hear a little bit about your journey into the world of veganism. What kind of brought you here?
Yes, Jim. So first off, I just want to say thank you for having me on this podcast. It's an honor.
My pleasure.
So what got me into veganism wasn't really so much the animals or the health. It was simply out of curiosity.
Wow, really?
So that all happened because when I just came off from the Army, when I got out back in 2016, I went to Texas to take care of my grandfather because he was ill at the time.
Okay.
But I wanted to stay active, and I was doing all the 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, triathlons, like you name it. Every event, like I was there, you know. And there was one event, it was on October 23rd of 2016. And it was a triathlon. Mind you, I didn't train for swimming, like at all, and I didn't have a bicycle. So I went to this bike shop, and you know, I was just talking to him, and I was like, yeah, like let's I'm planning to do a triathlon. Oh, I think they actually brought it up to me. I was like, oh, okay, I want to do it, but I don't have a bike. And they gave me like a $3,000 bike that I can just ride for this, you know, and I don't have to pick it up.
Wow.
Like they came and dropped it off during the event, and they were super nice. And the bike was like top notch. Maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that.
Wow.
So that event, I actually ended up getting second place in my age category. And and then after, you know, I just started talking to other people, and people were approaching me, and I was already in the world of like health and wellness. And this guy was just like, yeah, I garden. Like he was talking about himself, and then I was just like, oh, okay. And then towards the end, he was like, oh, I eat plants. And then you know, I wanted to kind of like say something, but I knew deep down I couldn't say something. Mainly because I didn't know the like his aspect, like his side of the story.
Right.
Because in order to argue effectively, you need to know both sides of the argument to argue effectively. I only knew one side. So from there, I just went vegan overnight.
Wow. But there's so much in that story. I'm fascinated. I love the idea of I'm going to sign up to a triathlon and I haven't got a bike. And I don't swim much. Says something about like the confidence. I'll just give it a go. I love that. Talk to me a little bit, and I definitely want to unpack this bit about the guy who said like I eat plants, and you thinking that sounds interesting. But the military. Tell me a little bit about that. Had you come across veganism before in the military at any point? At any of your peers there ever mentioned the word?
No, never. Like I've never even heard of the word veganism. Maybe vegetarian, because everybody eats meat, or if you don't eat meat, then you're vegetarian. You know, never vegan or anything.
So the general perceived wisdom that you got in your sort of military kind of like, you know, your formative years in the military was the traditional health and fitness route. I imagine quite protein heavy diet, was it? A meat based protein at that?
Like lean chicken and the fish and all that stuff, you know.
The quote unquote clean eating that they describe. yeah, exactly. I only asked because a while back I had an interview with a guy called Sergeant Vegan. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he called himself Sergeant Vegan. That's obviously not his real name. But he was a sergeant in the US military for years and was vegan, and ended up, you know, because he was like the only vegan there, ended up eating a lot of like cereal and like he had, at one point he said when he first joined it was like cereal and orange juice were like the only options he could have, so he was putting orange juice on his cereal and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, he definitely talked about this kind of like this you know, the stereotypical kind of, you know, masculinity through eating lots of meat and that kind of, you know, that kind of vibe being quite prevalent in the military. Was that kind of your experience too?
because I was like combat arms, so it's like right next in line with like infantry and like the closest thing you can get to like masculinity, you know. So
yeah, the traditional sense. Yeah, crazy stuff. So you're into your health and fitness post military. You get into this triathlon. What exactly did this guy say to you? I mean, he must have been quite convincing to have made you think, I'll give it a go. Or was it just purely out of like, well, if I don't know that side of the argument, the only way I can find it out is by trying?
Exactly. I was just curious about it, and mainly because I was reflecting back, because before the military I did 1 year of college, which I didn't finish, by the way, but I did take a course. It was a philosophical class, and that's where I learned most of like how to argue effectively, and how to do papers and stuff. So that kind of stuck with me all throughout, and I guess that day I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna go vegan.
Was your gut telling you he was wrong though?
No, I just really wanted to challenge him, because I wanted to see like his side. But first, I wanted to do my my due diligence and do my homework first before doing that.
Amazing. And first of all, how did you even get started with that? Because that's one thing to hear a guy at a triathlon say, you should, this is what I do. It's a great way of living. But it's another thing kind of putting it into practice, and especially if you're into your health and fitness. I imagine there was probably a little bit of trepidation in your mind around, where am I going to get all my protein from, and what about my nutrients and my macros, and am I going to hit? Was all that kind of buzzing away in your mind?
No, I kind of went into like survival mode. I didn't know what vegan even was. I thought I was going to be a rabbit and just like eat salads. Like honestly, that's my first thought. So, but I literally went online. I was like looking at everything that was like accidentally vegan, or how to make things vegan from like Taco Bell or Burger King, or just like restaurants around town that you can veganize, and that's what I was eating for like 6 months or so.
Okay, so was your diet quite unhealthy at the beginning, would you say? Or
yeah, very unhealthy.
So generally kind of fast food and the options that you could buy that were processed and accidentally vegan and those kind of things, Oreos and stuff.
Yes, Oreos. Exactly.
And at that point, you again, like, you could have well said, do you know what, I'm going to quit this now, because it's obviously not that healthy. It's either a choice of, you can only eat lettuce all day, or you have to live on Oreos. Was there some research going on in the background that started to show you some healthier ways to live?
No, like it was a traumatic experience that had happened that made me kind of make that switch. And well, you know how I told you my grandfather was sick? He was like, he was getting more and more sick as time went on, and at the time he had been in the like we had to send him to the hospital because he got so ill. And in the hospital, he wasn't getting any circulation through his right leg, or his right foot, should I say. So doctors didn't know what to do, and their one thing was to just amputate it, right? And this is like on a Friday, right? No, this is more like on the weekend, because it happened super fast. And it happened maybe like on a Tuesday, Wednesday, but then the next day the same thing was happening, and he wasn't getting circulation below his right knee, so they amputated his all the way up to his right knee, and next day same thing, so they just ended up amputating his whole right leg. And then after that, the doctors didn't know what to do, so they just literally sent him home to pass. And, by Sunday, he was, at my house, he just, passed. And like my whole family and me were just crushed.
Yeah, I can imagine. What a tremendously horrific experience for you. That's so, real tragedy. And so quick. Like, was he quite ill leading up to this point, or was this all quite a fast process?
Yeah, it was like he was slowly like deteriorating as time went on, and when he hit the hospital, that's he was in a tube, doing pills and just they didn't know what to do with him, like I said, and send him home, and but yeah. Horrible experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. And from there, did you kind of, was this then a focus on like, I need to think about my health, my future? How does it, what does it look like for me? What sort of spurred you on from there?
So while everything was going on, I was so crushed, and I was trying to hold back on the tears, mainly because my family was already crushed at the time, and I knew if they saw me break down, like they would lose it. So I was kind of trying to stay strong, even though I was dying inside. So I couldn't really show that side that much to my family. So what I was going through was definitely a lot. However, in my mind, I was thinking of not only about me, about my family, about my grandfather. I was thinking more like, how can I mitigate this so no one else will ever feel what I'm feeling right now? That's what was going on in my mind. Like, how can I do that?
And then where did that lead you?
So it was funny you asked, because the day after we had buried him, I got a phone call, a phone call to start working, because at the time I wasn't doing that well financially. So I just was working from 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day, and it was, I was starting to get money at the time, but I didn't have any free time or any time to kind of like process everything, right? But I did have a lot of time to like put my headphones in and like, because I was working by myself, just restocking at different, grocery stores. So I had a lot of time for myself, I had to be at one store, at 2 stores, 3 stores, and then just restock. But I had a lot of time to myself. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of vegan podcasts, business, like self-help, and a lot of just trying to move it forward, because people would listen to music and basically their whole day's wasted. And I was just listening to podcasts, and then one day I came across this chef. His name is Chef Miguel, from Mexico, and I just started following him. And I was just like, wow, like I want to do this. So I, since I had all this money, I was just like doing research online to see which, like my fastest way to become a vegan chef. And I came across Matthew Kenny. Are you familiar with Matthew Kenny?
I'm not actually.
He's like a American celebrity chef, and he's vegan, and he has a bunch of restaurants right now, but at the time he had a online school, and it was all vegan. They teach you cuts, plating, presentation techniques, and that's what I started investing in that. Yeah.
Wow. Had you cooked much before?
No.
Were you kind of into this before? No. It was Chef Miguel that was this original inspiration.
Yeah, because he was talking about how, on the podcast, he was talking about how chefs nowadays are the new doctors.
Fascinating. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I was just listening to his podcast and what he was saying, and how, you know, even if you go to a vegan restaurant and how it's not even 100% vegan, because they use like Teflon pans, and you know, he's just started going into like the science of like this whole like veganism as a whole, and I was just like so mind blown. But yeah, that's what really inspired me to just, you know, go head on and start this culinary dream. Yeah.
Wow. So it's incredible. So your whole life turned on the point of listening to a podcast while stacking shelves. Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. So talk me through the learning process, going from scratch to where you're at now. You know, a very capable chef. You know, someone making waves, so on and so forth. Obviously, there's probably some natural talent within there, but you I imagine you had to work incredibly hard to learn your trade from scratch. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
It took a lot of work, honestly, and I'm still actively working to get to where I want and to be. So when I was listening to more and more about this Chef Miguel character, chef, I was following him. And at the time I had 2 jobs. I had a full-time and a part-time. And then one day he goes, "Oh, I'm going to be in McAllen," which is like 2-3 hours from where I live. And I'm just like, "Oh, perfect." And so I just like jetted over there. I only had at the time I only had 1 day free, and on my day off I went straight to go see him. And yeah, it was pretty crazy because I went, it was crazy. He doesn't even know about this. So I went to go see him, and out of 70 people there was only 1 girl, or I was the only guy, sorry. So out of 70 people in his class, 99.9 were all women, and I was the only guy. And
wow.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit towards after, and I gave him a book and I gave him a gift card, and you know, he was like an actual human, you know, and I was so starstruck. He had asked me about my story and like what led me to where I am right now, and I had told him I want to work with him like for free, like I'll pay him, like I had told him. And he's like, "Okay, like next month I'll be in Tulum, I'll see you there, and here's my WhatsApp." And I was just like, okay. I was like, 1, I don't have WhatsApp. 2, I don't have my passport. I'm like, but I'm there.
That's incredible. So did you go?
Yeah, I expedited my passport. I even got my pass card in like 2 weeks, and the event was 4 weeks, and I got WhatsApp, and yeah, I ended up going. Yeah, even in the midst of having 2 jobs, still studying at the time. I just took off, and you know, I just showed up to Cancun one day, and he was just like, "Oh, you're here. I'm at work. Come through." I was like, okay.
Do you think he was expecting you to turn up? Or do you think he kind of thought, he won't really
come?
come?
No. He told me that he didn't expect me to go because, you know, he has a lot of people and a lot of, you know, guys that come up to him saying that they want to work for him, and, you know, it's all talk, but they don't really show up.
Wow. So what happened next? You've turned up at his door. He's kind of like, yeah. "Oh, hey Joe, kind of wasn't expecting you to actually turn up. You've turned up. This is amazing." What happened next?
Yeah, so we ended up doing I helped him out in the Tulum Veggie Fest or Vegan Fest, and it was in front of like 100, 150, almost 200 people. And you know, I was on stage with him. I was just like so starstruck, and yeah, so it was like the event was super successful. I not only got to go to Tulum and like go to this event that is like, you know, full of people. It's full of vegans, vegan celebrities. But I experienced it through a vegan celebrity himself, you know, because I was backstage with everybody, with all the celebrities, like Tori Washington, Nimai, Bianca, you know, and it's just so many more. I was just blown away by this whole experience. And mind you, this is my first event with Miguel, and I was like, wow, like I feel like I should pay him, you know, like, for this experience. And
what about the kind of learning experience, like from a cooking point of view? How do you feel your knowledge kind of accelerated once you started working with Chef Miguel?
Oh man, like he was just putting on the pressure because, like I said, I was working 2 jobs, a full-time and a part-time. I was also studying on my own, and the only time that I had to sleep was in transit, meaning in the planes, on the trains, in the buses, or airports, bus stations. However, Miguel would send me the recipes or things that I need to learn before I get there. He would send it to me maybe like 24 hours before. So I had to study like in buses, in the trains, you know, so I barely had time to sleep. So he was putting on all this pressure because as soon as I get there, I have to just execute and just do everything the way he wants it. And not only that, but also like talk to people, talk to him, make sure everybody's like, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, you know, he put on a lot of pressure, and I learned so much, like how to execute like an event effectively and smoothly, and, you know, being happy and just being grateful for it all at the same time, you know.
That's amazing. So he'd so I've got this right. He'd send you a recipe, and because you know you're working these jobs, you're trying to study, you're doing all this stuff. So I imagine did you actually get a chance to practice these recipes like in a kitchen, or was this all like theoretical? Or were you kind of trying to just steal away as much time as you could get in a kitchen at home to try and figure out what it was he'd sent?
No, like I had no time to actually practice this, but I had to master them before I landed, or even while I was doing it, and then show other people. Like right away, I was like, dang, this is like, it's too much, but you know, I'm here for it. You know, like I'm here for the experience.
Wow. So you're almost executing this recipe off the back of just reading and trying to read it over and over again and understand exactly what it says.
Exactly.
Amazing. Did that ever go wrong? Was there ever any times where you were at a festival or something with Chef Miguel and he was like, no, that's not
of
right?
Course. I mean, he would obviously call it out, and just like, because he would see it from like a mile away, and he would be like, okay, this is how you do it. And then if I needed training, he would like stop what he's doing and like show me. Like even it was in front of people, or like it didn't matter where we were, he would just stop what he was doing and just show me. And like that to me is just like huge respect, you know. Yeah. Just thinking about some of the things that you mentioned there back then, because I wanted to pick up on a couple of points. You mentioned there that your knowledge just of veganism generally, of health, wellness, improved dramatically because of the likes of Chef Miguel. And you mentioned Teflon, particularly. I'd love to hear some of these, because I was checking out your Instagram, and you've got some pointers on some of these things in here. I'd love to hear a few of them, because I'm not sure they're common knowledge even in the sort of the vegan community, which is often kind of crosses over with health and so on and so forth. Not always, of course, but sometimes. So just be good from your perspective to hear some of the things that you learned from it, and in general I've learned. Of course. Well, I learned so much through him, just by being around him and him actually saying this to people. and seeing him that, like, on his downtime, he would actually sit there and like read on studies on superfoods and X, Y, and Z. But some of the things, like you were saying, like Teflon, they have like heavy metals, and they tend to wear off. So when you're cooking and you actually scratch the pan and you see some of the, you don't see it lifting like when you're cooking, but you see some of the scratches like afterwards or the next time that you cook. But those heavy metals are very dangerous to or detrimental to our health. And, you know, sometimes, you know, when we don't even know it, but it's affecting us and affecting like our brain and how we think and how we do things, how we think, how we say, how we communicate, how we do everything, you know. And, you know, we're kind of just blinded by that. That's only one, you know. There's several others, you know, like, because he goes a lot in, he's like a raw vegan chef, and he's like 80-20, like 80% raw, 20% cooked, you know. And you know, I learned so much through that, and how living food is actually healing, and how like deep frying is not good for us, you know, because it has like no nutritional value, and microwaving things.
I sort of read the bit about microwaving. Tell us a bit about
so
that.
it just it distorts the nutrients and basically just kills them like completely, you know, because it has like the waves, like the, what is it called? I can't. Radiation. There you go. So just that gets into your food, and you're eating it, and you're consuming it, and you know, it's like they say, you know, you are what you eat. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, did you and have you now adopted this kind of 80-20 rule diet?
Most definitely. Yes.
Yeah. So what does that look like? Like a typical sort of day? Talk us through.
I do like intermittent fasting, and for the most part, like I only eat like one like cooked meal a day, and I usually generally fast or I snack throughout. So basically, like water in the morning, smoothie in the morning, and then I usually don't eat until like noon or 1 p.m. with like a snack, and like it's not until like 5-6 p.m. that I eat like an actual dinner, and then after that it's just like I either just fast or I just drink water or I just eat fruits, you know.
Yeah. I've spoken to a couple of people in this sort of space who kind of, you know, generally speaking, stick to this kind of 80-20 raw vegan rule and intermittent fast and so on and so forth. And something sort of always strikes me that I'd like to get your view on, which is like, you know, and I've again, this is off the back of a few conversations I've had with other people about, you know, how food sort of how it means so much to us as a society. You know, it means a lot to us emotionally. It's got these kind of deep-rooted emotive connections to, you know, times when we were a kid and we went and got ice cream with our uncle, or, you know, these kind of things. And I don't know, there's always a part of me that, and it's maybe just me trying to excuse myself from eating healthily, but there's always a part of me that's like, you know, what's the cost to our sort of enjoyment in life? You know, like if we can sustain ourselves for longer and we can live longer lives and so on, but do you find that there's a balance between that and kind of like being social with friends and family and, you know, partaking in events and so on and so forth? Like, do you find it kind of ever gets in the way of that, this kind of style of eating?
Of course, you know, and like that, like my day usually depends on like how I eat. It also depends on like what I'm doing. So if I'm traveling, for example, I usually don't eat breakfast. But if I do, it'll be like when I'm traveling or I'm going somewhere long distance where I know that there's not going to be any food for a little bit, then I would eat something more substantial. And for like events and stuff, I mean, I don't go to a party that I know, like, I mean, if I get invited to a party, I'm just gonna bring food. That's just this is just naturally, you know.
Fair.
And I try.
Many vegans
Yeah.
can relate.
Yes. I do eat a little bit beforehand, just in case they don't have anything vegan. But I'm not gonna, you know, bring food and then not share with everybody, you know, and just eat it all myself. So that's why I eat a little bit before I bring food, and then like for them to enjoy as well. So.
And I guess that one of the things that you've learned through Chef Miguel, and one of the things that you've kind of like built upon in terms of your knowledge, is making this kind of 80-20 split raw vegan incredible tasting too, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that, like the kind of recipe development, the kind of things that go into it. Because I think when you say the word raw vegan, I think many people sort of their vision is just purely, you know, whole foods, whole foods, and just eating, you know, fruit as it is, you know. But they buy it from their local market. They eat the apples. That's it, kind of thing. They don't think about there being, you know, almost. I think many people would think, well, where does the chef come in? So yeah, it'd be good to sort of understand, you know, where does the chef come in raw vegan food?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can still do a lot of things, like with raw veganism, like cooking, because you can, you know, for example, you can sous vide. Are you familiar with sous vide?
Okay.
So sous vide is like you basically vacuum seal whatever it is. Mm-hmm. You can cut up watermelon, marinated, or you can cut up portobellos and marinate them, cucumbers, you name it, you know, anything. And then you just vacuum seal it where there's no air inside, and it's just the marinade or the sauce or the salt or anything. And you sous vide it. Sous vide is just, it's cooking under hot water, a controlled hot water bath. So it doesn't go above the temperature that you want it.
Right.
Or you can, you know, you do that, or you can also dehydrate. You can make your own cheeses. You can make your own crackers, your own powders. Yeah, you can freeze dry as well. But to have a freeze dried machine is like tens of thousands of dollars.
There's two things that kind of jump out for me here. One is, this is an incredibly creative sort of art form of cooking, if you like. You've got, it's not just, I mean, being a chef is an incredibly creative pursuit in the first place, but then to add in this stipulation of trying to be 80-20 raw and vegan is it adds an extra dimension, I imagine, to your creativity. And the second part, again, I'd love to get your view on both of these things, about first of all, this creative process, and secondly, some of the processes you've described there almost make me think of, like, you know, understanding the food on almost a scientific level. I don't know if that's fair to say. So yeah, it'd be good to get your view on that, kind of this amalgamation of like the creative arts, if you like, and sort of science almost that you apply.
No, I mean, it all starts with the technique. You know, it's just understanding different techniques and the understanding food as well. You know, because some foods are hardier than others. You know, for example, a potato doesn't cook the same way as a watermelon does, because, you know, it's much more dense. You know, and it's just understanding all that. I learned through Miguel, through working, and also through a lot of cookbooks. So
yeah, I bet. And has it been like a creative outlet for you? Do you feel like it's something that's unlocked a creativity in you that, I don't know if it was there before, but, you know, it certainly is there now?
But at first it wasn't as creative. Because in order to break the rules, you need to understand the rules first before breaking them. But I'm still in the process of learning the rules, because I'm not all there yet. But however, I will one day, and, you know, God.
I love that.
God first, you know.
Without trying to sound too pretentious, it sort of reminds me of like jazz musicians, or like Picasso, like incredible painters. They almost need to know the absolute fundamentals of their instrument. They need to be able to play the piece as it's written in order to then, break the rules, like you say, and in order to sort of, go into different directions and be creative with it, they need to understand that first. So yeah, it's fascinating sort of hearing it from a chef's perspective. I've not necessarily thought about it from that point of view, but I think you're absolutely right. It makes sense. You've got to learn the rules, and then you can break them. That sounds like something that you've had drilled into you from Chef Miguel.
Yes, obviously, from day one, actually.
Absolutely, I love it. So moving forward now, so you're obviously still very much, like you say, in this learning process. You've taken on this incredible kind of journey of like changing career. I'm thinking like military career, then going through all these kind of different jobs, this tragic experience in your life, leading you into this conversation at a triathlon, and the whole piece is just an incredible story. And so, like you said, when you had this this tragedy with your grandfather, and then you taking on veganism and going down this route of being a chef, your kind of aim back then, as you said, was kind of you wanted to give back. You didn't want people to go through this experience that you went through. And I understand you're kind of working on a project to help restaurants and help them become vegan, or at least offer better vegan options. Tell us a little bit about that project.
So this project is just to help out vegan businesses or non-vegan businesses to implement vegan menus, but it goes much more deeper than that, because for me, I tend to like a perfectionist almost. I know what right looks like, and I'm not just gonna go in and just walk in like I own the place, or and just start implementing things. What I do first is I introduce myself to everybody, dishwashers, like everybody, and then start seeing how they operate and see how they can work efficiently so everybody's happier. The front, the managers, the workers, like line cooks, dishwashers, servers, and most importantly, the owners. Because if everybody's happy, who doesn't want to be in an environment that everyone's happy and everyone's thriving? So it's more so just like implementing systems for them that is completely tailored to them, and just helping them out, because I want to see these mom and pop shops, restaurants thrive, because as we saw in the pandemic, mom and pops were closing left and right, and even big chains were closing down. And I have nothing bad to say about the big chains, but I have my own thoughts about it, but I prefer the mom and pop. So
yeah, and I imagine that's where you feel like you're making the most difference.
Yes.
Where it affects it affects their family, is their livelihood. It means something to them.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. You've had some. I imagine you've been out, spoken to some restaurants, been in these kind of situations. Tell us a little bit about that. You mentioned about what the kind of the structure of like your support looks like. But is there some, was there some examples of you going into some restaurants and offering help? What's the process like? Do they tend to contact you? Have you reached out to them?
It's sometimes it's a little bit of both. I go out sometimes, and sometimes they reach out to me, and I just have to listen to them and see what they need, and if I can do my job effectively, like it's just. It means so much to me, because not only does it translate in your staff, it translates into your food, which then translates to your customers, which then will come back because they had an awesome experience. And, it's just generating more revenue for them in the long run.
Do you typically get people kind of restaurant owners reaching out to you wanting to put a vegan menu on? Or does it tend to be vegan restaurants who are looking for some support and some transformation?
Yeah, no, it's sometimes it's a little bit of both, because not all the time it's vegan. It's more in the sense of a place that wants to implement vegan menus.
Yeah. And so what's the experience level like that you've encountered in terms of vegan food? Is there a lot of like education that you've had to do in order to help people understand what it is in the first place and how to cater for vegans?
Of course, it's a whole like process, because I mean, if they're open-minded by even reaching out to me, it means the world, because then I can share my wisdom with them. And I don't say a lot, I just say a little bit just to kind of light that match for them, but I let them do it.
Yeah Amazing. What kind of things do you end up getting involved in? Is it more like the recipe creation, the kind of functional and technical kind of stuff, or is it more the bigger picture kind of vision of the restaurant?
Well,
and so on?
I always see the bigger picture in the long run, and I try to. I always hear out what the restaurant owner needs and wants and what he envisions, and it all leads kind of to the same tunnel, the same end goal, which is the bigger picture. Yeah. That's what I see. I see the bigger picture. So I have to, just because I know the end goal doesn't mean I know everything else, or how to get there. Each restaurant is different, because maybe they want to do A, B, C, Z, Y, X, and then, because, restaurants, it's, every restaurant is different, and everybody's different, the staff is different, people are different, and you have to just show them, you actually have to stop what you're doing, even if it's busy, and then go down and show them and train them properly, kind of going back to what Chef Miguel taught me.
It's an amazing impact, I think you're no doubt having on your sort of community and beyond, and just incredible to hear somebody sort of spreading such a passion for incredible vegan food and showing people how to do it as well. So more power to you. Just a question for you. If you sort of were speaking to your former self back in the military, was there ever a time where you thought you'd end up where you are now?
I would never thought that I would be doing this. I knew I didn't want to continue in law enforcement or anything of that matter. I never, cooking never came across my mind ever.
It's amazing, Joe, how far you've come. It really is incredible stuff, and all the best to you. If folks wanted to get in touch with you, where would they go about doing that?
They can reach out right now through Instagram at Joe Montes _.
Excellent. Or I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes for folks as well. So, hopefully any prospective vegan businesses listening to this, or even some folks who are kind of vegan curious restaurant owners looking for some support, I'd thoroughly recommend they reach out to you, Joe. The experience that you've amassed and your understanding of how teams work and health and fitness, as well as you're underpinning that with amazing vegan nutrition, clearly you're the right man for the job. So I thoroughly recommend it. Thanks so much for your time, Joe. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, and all the best with things.
Of course. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you again so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Speak soon, Joe.
There was something there that looked like a fire. It looked like them getting a rock.